Joining us in studio is Greg Morris, and he is our representative here in Appling County and Toombs County and a couple of surrounding counties as well for House 156. Greg, we appreciate you stopping by here at Z94.
Absolutely. It's good to be in Appling County this morning. I crossed the river about 6:30 a.m. to go to Mayor Rigdon's service for National Day of Prayer. You know, today is National Day of Prayer. And it was a fantastic service, well attended, very good message by the pastor at First Baptist. So it's good to be here, and I would encourage everybody. There's another. I'll be in Toombs County tonight at the courthouse, but most courthouses around 6 or 6:30 if you'll check. But I would encourage all Christian folks to it's National Day of Prayer to support that program, and they would be I think enjoy that.
And I understand, you know, as we're talking a little bit about this last legislative session and how you are bringing up faith and how faith is under assault. We do have a Supreme Court case coming out here that could affect a lot of churches. We're hearing about possibly tax-exempt status going out the window. One of the bills that was in the House and in the Senate, and at one point in time it didn't pass this session. It's kind of still on hold right now, and that would be the Religious Liberties Bill. A lot of people are calling it the Religious Liberties Bill. Is kind of a generic term. I know there's an official term with that. Tell me a little bit about how that bill ended up the way it did this time around, and where did you stand on that?
Well, there are a lot of reasons. First of all, I support the bill. As a matter of fact, I am a co-sponsor with Representative Sam Teasley from Cobb County of the House version of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act is the official term, RFRA for short. Law similar to the one that was under assault in Indiana, and really based the federal law that was passed back even during the Clinton administration. What happened to it? It did not. We put our efforts behind Senate Bill 129, which had moved through the Senate, and we felt like we had a better chance of passing. It was the same bill. We didn't care whose bill it was as long as it got passed. So Senator Josh McCoon of Columbus, we got in behind that effort. There's several reasons why it didn't pass. Of course, you know, the controversy. There were other big bills. There was the transportation bill. We had the medical marijuana bill that was very, took a lot of attention. Another bill I co-sponsored, House Bill 17, the Sexual Predator Act. We also passed Ava's law that provides autism for children under 6. So I guess it's almost like it ran out of room. Like Coach Buck Crave used to say at Vidaea's football coach, we didn't lose, we just ran out of time. So I'll kind of go with Coach Cravey. We haven't lost religious liberty. We just ran out of time in the session to do what we needed to do. We ran into an issue in the Judiciary Committee in the House, but we'll fix it. And I feel confident that we'll pass a bill next session. I strongly support it. A perfect example is the fire chief in Atlanta, Cochran. I'm trying to Kelvin Cochran. I came to the legislature with Kasim Reed, who's mayor. He was a legislator. A common sense type fellow in the legislature. When he got elected mayor of Atlanta, he has a certain constituency that he has to please, and there's and when Chief Cochran published his book on his own time, expressing his views on faith, he was fired simply because of his religious faith. That shouldn't happen anywhere in this country, and it shouldn't happen in Georgia, and we're going to do our best to see that that doesn't happen anymore.
We know that this is always a hot button issue, especially when this came to light, and that would be the transportation bill and funding it. We saw a lot of different polls out there that weren't necessarily in favor of it. We heard some talk of it being whittled down a little bit. Has it been whittled down to a different level as far as gas taxes are concerned? And I guess the other issue that some people have is that with the way that it's set up is that with inflation, in the years down the road, it could go up even further. I've heard a little bit about that. I'm not saying that's true or not. What's your take on that, about what you're hearing in regard to the transportation bill?
Well, there is a lot of confusion out there, and I don't want to add to it. Let me just say from the beginning, I was opposed to the transportation tax. I was opposed to the House version. Well, I voted against every version that came before us in the House. Now, that being said, that there is a need for transportation road improvement is without dispute. It was just a matter of how do we do it and how do we pay for it and over what period of time do we try to fix these problems. I thought the transportation tax was a bad deal for our area for several reasons. But the bill was improved. But as you remember, the wisdom of the voters in 4 years ago, I guess it was, when we passed the T-SPLOST, to where we had a self-imposed 1% tax on ourselves for projects in our area. Our locals are paying about 10 cents for every dollar we're spending. We're replacing the not only city streets, county roads, a lot of resurfacing projects, but we're replacing the U.S. #1 bridge. I never thought I'd live to see it myself. It's a Tier 1 bridge. It has to be replaced. We're that now. The Hazelhurst Bridge is going to be replaced within the next 4 years. So we had already imposed that tax for our improvements on ourselves. I felt like that it was going to be double taxation on the people that I represent if the bill passed. Originally, it was dealing with increasing sales tax, to which it was possibly that we could have been exempt in our area from that, or at least a portion of it, based on our having passed the T-SPLOST. But it went to a strict excise tax increase, among other things, so we were not able to get, you have to have uniform excise tax across the state. So there was no way that we could compensate our local folks here for the increase. So I didn't support it and voted against it. In the end, we wound up with, all the sales tax that the state collects will be gone. The 7.5% excise tax moves to 26 cents per gallon on gasoline and 29 on motor fuel. On diesel fuel. And there would be there are other parts of it. There's a hotel motel tax in it. There is a fee for trucks at varying weights, $50 and $100. New fees for electric vehicles who don't buy gasoline but use our roads. And again, there's a need to fix bridges and roads in the state is without question. We do. I just felt like that this was not going to be fair to the folks that I represent in my area. And the T-SPLOST regions, the three T-SPLOST regions across the state, I just felt like it was a bad deal, so I voted against the transportation bill.
Well, taking a look ahead here for the next legislative session, it looks like we're in a recess period of time now. What are your top priorities coming into the next legislative session here in Georgia?
Well, again, religious liberty, the things that we left on the table that were undone. Several things. Education. We are at a critical point, I think, in the way that we are handling education and our educators and students in the state. There is a Common Core is very controversial, and I believe that we will take that up. I have grave misgivings about Common Core, and I think we can do better. But yet our teachers, and I'm making a new effort in Appling, Jeff Davis, Montgomery, and Toombs to try to open up direct communication with my educators, school board members, so that I can better understand the local needs. Because so many times we're trying to fix a problem in DeKalb County, and that in that it affects our systems, and we shouldn't do that. So I'm going to try to figure out a way that we can give our teachers, the teacher evaluation system that we have in now, commonly known as TEKS and LEAKS. Educators know what that means. General public doesn't. But I think it's real problems, and I think our teachers are having a very difficult time dealing with the requirements that we have now, the charter systems that we're offering, the IE Square charters, gives relief from some of the state regulations. But we need to do something about teacher evaluation so that we're focused on learning in the classroom, not adhering to some federal requirement for dollars. That's a top priority. Again, taking up religious liberty. Autism, we did pass the bill, but it doesn't do much good to have coverage if you don't have access. So we're going to work to try to get access for diagnosis and treatment for autism in our area. That's another thing. But secondly, we're going to get back two things that were left. My entitlements are now 1 in 5 Georgians are drawing food stamps. Many more on disability. We're rapidly getting to a place, even in our own state, where you're coming where 50% of the people are working and 50% of the people are drawing benefits. We have to do something about eligibility for food stamps in this state. 1 in 5 Georgians shouldn't be drawing food stamps. We should be trying to get people off of food stamps, not adding them. And I've met with Bobby Cagle, who's the new director of DFACS. He recognizes the problem. He's willing to work with me on that. So we need to trim those. That's the employers. When you talk to employers, we can't get anybody to work. Why? Because they make more money with government checks than they do at lower paying jobs. And we don't have an immigration problem. We've got an entitlement problem. People are coming across that border to do jobs that people don't have to do anymore in this country. And I can't do anything about what they're doing in Washington, but what we can do in Atlanta, I'm going to do. We have to get back on that, getting the food stamp rolls drastically reduced in this state, and I have a plan to do that, and I want to implement that in the next session. The Ten Commandments Monument, we're working on the design that we passed in my bill in the 2013 session. We've almost got the design put together. It's not taxpayer dollars, so we've got to set up a fund so that we pay for it ourselves and a place to put it. We've located a place that we think would be appropriate. And I love the design. If we can actually get it done, the hint would be if you familiar with Kirk Cameron,
yes, absolutely, yes.
the former actor who is now a tireless Christian advocate, and he has a relatively new program called Monumental. Monumental is a story about pilgrims, the pilgrims that came over for religious freedom. And his thing is I need to understand what the pilgrims were going through so I can do the same thing today in my country that they did then. And he discovered there's a monument in Massachusetts that is a fantastic monument to the pilgrims and religious liberty. And we're borrowing a little bit from that to create the one in Georgia. But I want to get that design complete. I want to get the location done and get that done. So I'll be busy with that. So entitlement reform, back on the food stamps. The federal government is, my requirement in my bill was that there be a photo identification on the EBT card that you use for food stamps. Every time we agree with the federal government that this is how we're going to handle it, they add another requirement. So it would cost almost $10 million now for the state to comply with the requirements that they have to do that. And it's clear what they're trying to do. They're trying to make it too expensive for us to try to combat food stamp fraud, because the federal government, as it is today, wants more people on the government welfare rolls. They want to increase, not pull back. But what we're going to do in Georgia, if I have anything to do with it, is pull back. We need to get that photo IDs on the card, and we need to drastically reduce the rolls. And again, the purpose of the bill was drug testing for food stamp recipients that have a suspicion-based drug use, either from a police record or maybe they failed a drug test at work. And that's what really makes my blood boil, and most people I talk to, if you've got to have a drug test to get a job, to drive a truck, then it's not unreasonable to expect someone who is getting food stamps, taxpayer dollars, and they have a history of drug arrest, failing drug test at work, then it is a taxpayer money subsidizing possibly drug use, and we should be able to drug test that individual to make sure that the taxpayer is not subsidizing their drug use. That case is still going through the Florida courts. Right now we're letting Florida pay the legal bills, and that'll wind up in the Supreme Court hopefully not too long, and we'll get a resolution. If Florida wins that case, we can drug test any food stamp recipient that we choose if they win. So we're waiting on that outcome, but we're after entitlement reform. I'm after it in this state. We can't have 50% of the people working and 50% of people on government benefits. That won't work for my children. They're 15 and 12 years old. I don't want to leave a state or a country, but particularly my responsibility, to where they have that burden. That's not right.
Greg Morris, House 156. He's our representative here in Appling County and surrounding counties, and we sure appreciate you stopping by today. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, anytime. Thank you for allowing me to communicate. And again, I represent Toombs, Montgomery, the Alderman Hall Precinct, and Jeff Davis, and most all of Appling County. So thank you all for allowing me to serve. It's a privilege.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Great. Excellent.
Well, you're